Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ann Walhout, Association Coordinator of PPRA. Thank you for joining us today for our third webinar in the 2021 Ahead of the Curve, How I Built This Network webinar series. Today, we will hear from Limerick Township, Pennsylvania on how they set and are achieving their network goals. We do have you all on mute for the webinar today and will be using the question function on the sidebar of your screen for any questions. All questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. This webinar is being recorded and a copy will be provided to all registered attendees via email and will also be posted on RoadResourceorg. The facilitators for today's webinar are Lindsay Matush, President and CEO, and Grace Stansberry, Account Executive of Vario Consulting. As a marketing firm, PPRA partnered with Vario to create RoadResource.org. We will now turn the webinar over to Lindsay and Grace.
Good morning. Good afternoon, I suppose. We are excited to be with you all today, and we are excited to be able to introduce this story of Bill Bradford and Limerick Township. When we do our work throughout the year in connecting with agencies, we're always on the lookout for those agencies who've taken the same amount of money and done pretty tremendous things in their road network to see improvement in that network and to see ways to save taxpayers' dollars. And so you're going to see a lot of that today in this story with Bill. We also have Mike on the line, and I'm going to tell a little bit more about Mike and Bill, give you their bios in just a moment. We'll start with myself and Grace. We are the strategists and the builders behind Road Resource. We are marketing and communication strategists, not asphalt experts. That's what Bill and Mike are here for, and we're excited to kind of show you some of the tools on this site that can help you achieve whatever the size of your network, very similar things that you're going to hear Bill achieved in his. So I'll tell you a little bit about Bill and Mike. Bill is the Public Works Superintendent at the Township of Limerick. He started there in the early 1990s. He was a heavy equipment operator and had a background in heavy highway. He was actually brought on to the township to look at ways that they could save money, bring some of the work in-house, and he became the director in the mid-90s, where he has been building a team, building a fleet, looking at a capital equipment budget, developing that from the ground up, and saving the town tremendous amounts of money. Today, he has a 20-man crew, 2 divisions, both highway and parks, and an outstanding fleet of equipment that saves taxpayers thousands of dollars each year. Mike is the project manager in sales and marketing for Recon Construction Services. He has a very long history in asphalt recycling. In fact, he's been engaged in asphalt recycling for 46 years, been a member of ERA for 33 years, past president of ERA, past board member of FP2, so has kind of a lifelong commitment to preservation and asphalt recycling. He came to the US from England, so you'll get to hear his accent a bit later, in 1972 and began his career in 1975 with E.J. Brenneman. And when he went back to England for a brief stint, when he came back to the US in 1984, it was 1 year after E.J. Brenneman had done the first ever asphalt recycling job in Pennsylvania. And so in 1984, when he came back, he was asked to spearhead that asphalt recycling division and has really been involved in that ever since, until they sold the company in 2017 to Recon Construction Services, where he is today. So Mike is mostly here for questions. If you have really specific questions, you'll see that a commitment to asphalt recycling, a commitment to reusing existing resources in place where possible is one of the many ways that Bill has saved the township lots of money. So Mike's here to kind of field those questions, but mostly we'll be focusing on Bill's story today. So before we turn it over to them, just a bit of background about who we are and what we're doing here. This webinar is brought to you by the Pavement Preservation and Recycling Association, which is a partnership of the Asphalt Emulsion Manufacturers Association, EMA, the International Slurry Surfacing Association, ISSA, and the Asphalt Recycling and Reclaiming Association, ERA. And they came together really to form this alliance with one big goal, And the promise behind it all is this: we empower agencies to be the very best possible stewards of their road networks and their taxpayer dollars. Everything that ever comes out of PPRA exists towards this ambition. We built this webinar series really at the request of agencies to hear stories from their own. And what we do in this sort of how I built this network series is we highlight agencies who have demonstrated overall network level progress, who can show a really robust use of a treatment toolbox, which is really critical, as you'll see, in taking the same amount of money and just spending it smarter. And these are folks who have said our commitment is to take every dollar as far as we possibly can. You can learn more about this series, and there's a lot of other resources and educational opportunities. If you go to this URL at roadresource.org/better, and as always, everything's free. It's just a commitment of the 3 associations to say, we want this information in your hands in service to the work that you do every day and to taxpayers having the best networks possible. So we began this project really in 2015. And when we did that, we did a big research project. We talked to agencies all over North America at all different levels of decision making. And what we were interested in was understanding what are the qualities that are common to these really progressive or thought leaders and just leaders who are taking their network and seeing an up and to the right trajectory, right? Seeing their overall network improve every year. What is common to them and how are they doing it? And we came up with 4 key traits. So here they are, very quickly. Number 1, they have a big treatment toolbox and they know when to use which treatment. Number 2, they think with a network mindset. It's not about what am I going to do with this road. It's about how does my treatment plan across my network this year impact my decisions next year and lead me to a better network trajectory. Number 3, they really pay attention to the success and innovation of others that live in similar regions or climates. And some of them are traveling around the country to learn from people and thinkers like them. And that's part of the purpose of this webinar. Lastly, they're in touch with the industry at large, and they pay attention to the research coming off the test tracks, and they tend to have great relationships with contractors and manufacturers who have helped them really understand the ins and outs of particular treatments. What's not on here, but what is highly notable, and we realized that honestly when we were interviewing Bill for this, in almost every case that we saw a network manager, roadway manager, have a pretty dramatic before and after story, right? My network was here and over time I got it here. It took a leader, and it took someone with vision who was willing to challenge the status quo and who was just for whatever reason committed to doing, approaching the same network, but with more network level thinking and a commitment to save dollars and do the best things for roads. And so that's Bill. So we have this campaign, this idea that it's always better to be the fox, right? So when we think about Bill, I'm really sorry, but people might start calling you the fox after this webinar, and I'm not sure that's a bad thing. The idea being these are guys who aren't sitting back and reacting to the same thing every year. They're waking up every day saying, how do I do this better? And if I can do it better, I will. And frankly, that's what has inspired us about all of you guys is the fact that the work that you do is hard. And so we always like to start by saying thanks. We know you don't hear that enough. We know you're out there keeping our communities moving. And there is some kind of magic to you all being the ones who say, you know what, we're gonna make choices that extend taxpayer dollars better or farther, improve the condition of our roads, protect our environment and save our natural resources, and do the really hard work of over time seeing that kind of change. So what are we going to cover today? We'll tell you a little bit about Limerick Township. We'll talk about how they mobilized a new plan, some of the hurdles that they overcame, and then we'll share those results. And I'm keeping an eye on the chat and the questions. So as those things arise, share them with us, and we will have a really good discussion at the end. So with that, Bill, tell us a little bit about the township of Limerick.
Limerick Township, when I first came here, it was about 60 center lane miles, as you can see on the board. It's a small old farming community. Been around for over 275 years. I think George Washington stayed in one of our places back in the 1700s, 1800s. It's a very rural community. With that being said, since the 1990s, it has grown substantially into a small city outside of Philadelphia. It's a beautiful place to be. There's countryside on one side and the city on the other side. Next, I'm good. Oops. Sorry. That facility is where we started back in the 90s, 86 actually. That's our first facility. It stored all of our equipment sideways. It was our offices, it was our break room, it was our lunchroom. There was guys jammed in there. And then the new facility which we moved into in 2018, as you see on the right-hand side. Next. Again, that's the old salt facility. The two big doors on the right were salt, which stored about 300 tons. The other side is the new facility, which stores over 4,000 tons of salt, which we go through each year. It's stocked each year, and we never run out. And that's huge. With the lane miles that we have gained over the past, 20 years, 30 years, it's a substantial increase for us.
Bill, can you talk a little bit about this growth, from being needing a salt shed at the size on the left to needing a salt shed at the size on the right? Can you talk about how that rapid growth occurred for the township and what that meant for you?
The rapid growth with all the farmland and the development that came into Limerick Township, the administrators would take dedication of streets. With that being said, our miles increased substantially each and every year. So we'd end up borrowing salt every single year from neighbors with 300 tons. And that is the reason that we designed this facility, was to handle our own facilities and be able to help our neighbors. And the board agreed to it after 3 years, and we budgeted the projects. The township highway department did all the site work, did everything but build the building. And now we are one of the I wouldn't say top salt. We never run out of salt, and we have salt for maintaining our roads constantly, no matter what winter brings us.
So tell us a little bit about what it was like to manage the roads back in the early 1990s when you came on board, and what the network looked like. Your before picture.
Well, the network, I would say that when I first came here, we were, I would say, reactive. And when I came from heavy highway, I took this position. I was a heavy equipment operator in the beginning. We filled potholes every day. We had narrow roads. We have an airport which had a 16-foot road alongside of it. We had no stormwater management. We didn't even mill and fill. We just basically patched roads until, to keep them open and safe. With that being said, we had other inspectors that did our work for us, that would come out and run equipment to our inspectors. Until 1996, I was opted to be foreman, and I set a goal from that point on to strive to be better, to be successful. And the bottom line is myself and Limerick Township, I strive for success, and I took the job. I'm very passionate about my job. I'm passionate about Limerick Township, and to me, success doesn't come to you. You have to go get it. And that's what I did. I went out and got it, and we started. Our first recycle job was 1986, I believe, Michael. And it was a road that we put curb in. In 92, I came in, I put curb in the road. We widened the road to 22 feet. We put storm sewer in, and away we went.
Very cool. And how about today?
And today, we have built within our city, our complex and our team, we have built a very skilled, highly successful team. You're only as good as the team around you. So it's not just me here. They're very educated. They don't cut corners. They do their job. They inspect the roads. They're taught very well. They know what tools to use. They're very organized, and they know what we want. And they've also, I established expectations. That was one of my goals too. So when I brought somebody in here, they were expected to learn, to know how to do what we do, to learn asphalt, to learn the whole system of public works. And I built a capital budget so we can have equipment for the people. We perform everything in house to this day, and it's just a great place to be. And, I worked with Mike for many years. I worked with many contractors for many years. They've taught us a ton, new techniques, things that work, how to preserve things, and it's been outstanding.
Bill, will you talk a little bit about that that partnership? Because that's one of the things that we have really seen with agencies who take this further, is they figure out how to form those really mutually beneficial relationships with contractors and manufacturers who do this treatment every day, or who know the material incredibly well, and are in it together, right? It really takes both sides of that fence, kind of making sure that we're working towards the same objectives. So I'd love you to talk about how you kind of found and nurtured those partnerships and the role they played.
From when I came in here, there was always advertising for classes from Pennsylvania. Has free classes for public works people as far as maintenance and things like that. And I decided to take those classes, and then let my people take those classes. And then we went to conferences, and we would meet guys like Michael, and we would mingle, and we would talk to other townships. Montgomery County itself here in Pennsylvania has a Montgomery County Public Works Department committee who meets once a month. We are all on the same page. We talk all the time. So the network is very big, and part of that comes from just being honest. To me, it's honesty which builds the relationship between the contractor and the public works department, or whoever it may be. But that is gigantic. The honesty, the integrity of that person, and we teach people. We go to wherever we can go. We used to be the largest class in LTAC classes to attend. And that's how we learn. That's how we network. So networking is gigantic.
Yeah. That's that, being in touch with the industry at large. Yes. Thank you.
Yep.
So some principles that drove your plan. We know that there are a few things that you have really committed to as we sort of interviewed you and try to figure out how this guy do it. And here's the big four. So help everybody understand what those are.
When I first started, it was worst roads first. That's how it was. And that's back in the day. And that's what people did. If your road fell apart, you threw a coal patch in and you went on the next day. But the main thing is longevity of your highways, longevity of your streets depend on preventive maintenance. So we developed a plan where we could do our good roads first with a preventive maintenance technique, and then gradually maintain the other ones as needed be. So we have a strategy. And that strategy was, to lower the cost over time. We did inventory on all our roads. We did field surveys. We analyzed the street. We planned a strategy, and we implement that cost-effective technique for that good road to maintain our system. We used Michael's company many times for materials that are already there. So if you're going to reconstruct a road, it's easier and makes more sense to recycle the material that's there than it is to go out and tear it up and do it again. So preventive maintenance does a lot. And what that does, it lowers our cost over time. It's predictable. It predicts our cost in the future. There's fewer failures. There's better condition of pavements, and it utilizes all our resources. That's what we try to do. If that makes sense.
Tell us a little bit about your toolbox. How do you do it?
These are some of our toolbox techniques that we use, and let me tell you, we use these all the time almost every single year during the season. Our fog seal, came about when it's good for aesthetics. It seals the road. It makes people think that, they just paved it. It seals the stone. A lot of complaints. We chip seal every year. It's probably the most cost-effective maintenance technique I would say that I've ever used. It's two something a square yard. Obviously, crack seal is number one. That's routine maintenance. We've used that every single year. Micro surfacing again has to be a good road. You can't do that on a bad road. So that's one reason you do good roads first. Our flowable fill probably came about 3 to 5 years ago when we had some sinkholes and we have to move on. That stuff is amazing. Of course, we use Michael for in place recycling and mill and fill. We do that ourselves now. We bought a mill, we bought a paver, and my crew is now a paving road. So we do just about everything.
Bill.
Yes.
How many treatments were in your toolbox when you started there?
I would say cold patch and not many, maybe 3.
Yeah.
We didn't do any mill and fill. We did cold patch. We started recycling because it was worth roads first, and that was about it.
It's so much the story, and we're not going to talk about it now because we have some time to ask you questions about it later. But for folks on the call, that it's so much the story that we've seen when people just decide we are going to do this differently. One of the first things they start doing is adding treatments to the toolbox, and it's certainly not without its hurdles. So a little bit later, we're going to ask Bill how he brought people along and kind of practically how he did that and how he expanded that toolbox.
But in the meantime, the first step that you can take, you heard Bill talk a little bit about going to online classes, local groups, learning from contractors and experts in his area. The first step, if you're looking to expand your toolbox, you can do it real easily on RoadResource.org. We always promise to equip you with the same tools that we're talking about that Bill has as best we can and for free. So this is exactly the place to go for you to learn more about putting the rubber to the road when it comes to this stuff. And so I will walk through a little bit about the treatment section of the website. If you're on RoadResource.org, again, totally free for anyone and everyone to use. Check out these tools, the pavement criteria and pavement photo tool. This is the first sort of place on the website where we answer that critical question: what treatment is right for my road? How do I know when to use what? And what could possibly be in my toolbox? So you can see this cross section of a road with pavement distress moving from left to right, starting in condition A all the way to F. And then a short list of treatments where we show where each would address the distresses in that given piece of pavement. So play around with this to understand a little bit about how it works. At a high level, you can enter your pavement condition, enter primary distress, and as you do that, different treatments gray out and other treatments stay in black, indicating which might be possible solutions to a road in this given situation. So if I have a road that's a PCI of 70 to 84 with low rutting, let's say that it is a rural minor collector with a bituminous surface treatment. Each of those things gives me a set of criteria to look at for different treatments, and it's suggesting anywhere from microsurfacing to cape seal to chip seal. Even at higher distresses or deeper issues, we might be considering cold planing, hot in place, different tools in the toolbox as we talked about. So we can check out here, cold planing. If we needed to mill off some of that rutting, would be an option for us to start. We're thinking about microsurfacing. We can learn a little bit more about microsurfacing. This is just a great place to go for more information on each of these treatments. And then of course, there's more information in the Treatment Resource Center where you click to learn more about each possible solution. The other side of this coin is maybe I don't know the primary distress that's happening to my road. Maybe I don't know my pavement condition, but I know I've got a problem. I can check here in the top right-hand corner, pavement photos, where you can actually explore here as well, this Explore by Pavement Photos. And we've assembled a series of photos with roads in various distresses, all across the top of the pavement deterioration curve to the bottom, where you could identify roads that look similar to yours. Click to learn what exactly is going on here. Here it says we're seeing high rutting, and we might have some secondary distresses of oxidation and raveling, and a couple of possible solutions to that given road, where I would click to learn more about each of the treatments here in the Treatment Resource Center, which is the next tool that I want to share with you. The Treatment Resource Center, you can also navigate to it here under Treatment Toolbox. It's got 18 different treatments and information that you would need to feel confident applying these in your own network. Like Bill said, it took a lot of learning and instruction and also teaching internally for his staff to feel comfortable applying and even inspecting these treatments. This is a great place to start. We've got everything from a high-level overview to process and variations, expectations. What can I expect when I lay this on a given road? And as we know, with the right treatment, the right road at the right time, it varies depending on when and where you apply each treatment, how long you can expect that treatment to live. So check out the Treatment Toolbox, all kinds of information from pre-construction to construction, quality assurance, information about inspection, testing protocol, great places to start. And then again, as Bill talked about, one of the most important things is checking out and seeing what other people are doing in your area, in which case we have assembled success stories so you can see where these treatments are being used across the country, in what regions they're being used, and how it might be applicable to your own situation to understand a little bit more of, let's say, microsurfacing being used on a high volume road. You can learn about those stories right there in the Treatment Toolbox. So again, as we promised to equip you with the tools that you need to make a difference in your own network, this is a great place to start on RoadResource.org at the Treatment Toolbox level. And so with that, we'll be jumping back and forth between Bill's story and then the tools that you'll need to start putting some of this to work for your own network. So we'll come back to Road Resource in just a bit. But Bill, tell us a little bit about how you started mobilizing this plan. You learned a lot about these new treatments, started trying to put it into action. What did it take and how did that work? Here's a lovely photo of what you've built, the inside of your shed there.
Again, I mean, as far as the roads go, from all the knowledge that we learned and speaking with engineers and so forth, we developed like our own in-house database, and I think database is number one as far as road preservation. So we had to create a database with all our streets and their condition. So that's part of your inventory, and then we did all the surveys on those streets, which is my team gets a sheet of paper and it has a list of whatever strategy on there it may be, or the effect of that street on there. We went to facilities that we've known that were growing like us outside of Pennsylvania. That's where I designed our facility, because I need our facility to be right for Limerick Township. So we have a very large fleet. I needed a large warehouse, but didn't want my warehouse cluttered. So my warehouse is separate from my offices and my break rooms and locker rooms. So that was one of the things we did. As far as the salt building goes, we looked at PennDOT, we looked at the domes, and then we thought, you know what, this doesn't suit us. We're not in that straight area. Where our township building is, we made the salt shed, as you saw, look like it fit in. It fit in with the neighborhood behind us. All those things went into, the phase of building this whole department. So we often go to the Penn State Associated Township Supervisors meeting. All our online resources, or we get together with all those people. But the day-to-day plans came from all the knowledge that we gathered and all this, the mingling that we did. For me to, again, be passionate to look into our inventory of our system and build what I thought Limerick Township needed. So my facility is good for 30 years. I have 20 people, it'll fit 5 more people. If I get 5 more people in 10 more years, the building's facilitated for that. And there's also room to grow. So that's one thing we looked at, is the future, not right now. And our strategy was, using analysis of our tools. Our pavement management system makes our decisions easier. It makes my guys' decisions easier. And every day counts. Like you said, it's the right time and it's the right place. It's the right technique. And, you know, pavement preservation will maintain your road at a lower cost than it will do traditional ways. So if you have a pavement preservation plan, it'll maintain what you have for your board of supervisors, for your budget, at a lower cost than it would if you just, you know, do it the old-fashioned way.
Mhm.
Is that good?
So you talked about one of the things that we're sort of fascinated by is your learning. And even just the way you talked about figuring out how you were going to build the shed, you did the same thing. And you kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but you did the same thing when you were figuring out what treatment and how to do it differently. And what do you need to know about each treatment to be successful? So this is the list of things that you shared with us that you did, from LTAP courses to stuff inside of the state, in the region, nationally. One of my favorite things Bill said he did was attend webinars and then call the people up after the webinar and just ask them questions. So you were really active about building your network. Is there anything else you want to share about how that really informed what you needed to know to do things differently in Limerick County?
I mean, again, I think it's not, there's no perfect recipe. There's nothing that I think the person that heads the department, that is in charge of the roads and bridges, needs to have passion. He needs to care. He needs to see, you know, what it's about. And you can't, in today's society, you can't just go on, come in and sit down every day and go fill potholes. And I'm very passionate about my job. I come to work early, I leave late, and I think that's the part of it. And I educate myself every day. I mean, I learn every single day on what it may take to build a better bridge, to build a better road. And I think that is, it's just an expectation I have of myself. It's just how I was brought up. And I really, to answer the question, how do you want me to answer the question? I don't know if that's it or not, but I think it's really just, it's the person, it's the individual. I wanted to go to this department. I had a goal. My goal was to save the township money. My goal was to have a construction department, which we have. And it saved, in 2019, we did 2 bridges. We saved the township $2.3 million. Doing that in-house work ourselves. And that's having guys that know what they're doing and having a passion for this job.
Tell us a little bit about that. We have next on the list, how did you rally the crews? What was that like?
I mean, listen, they buy into it. They're young, they're ambition. And we all came here for one reason, and that was to build this place to what it is today. And I don't think any of them came here, and you hear of a township job, and this goes back to the 90s and the early 2000s. The township job is you go there, you do nothing, you retire, you get out of there. And we weren't like that. When they hired me here in 1990, they hired me to be the equipment operator and to look at the future of this township. And I took that and ran with it. So somebody gave me an opportunity, and I'm not going to let that person down. The same thing happens when I teach my crew. They're given an opportunity to learn, to be equipment operators, to build bridges, and to have something that they can walk away from here knowing that they did themselves. And it's gigantic. And I educate every single one of them. They all know their expectations. They're great people, and they go to work. It's just, they embrace the industry. They embrace the challenge, just like I did. They're good people.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, and Bill, you shared with us, I'll flip to the next slide real quick. Your crew's out there doing the pavement assessment themselves every 2 years.
Yep, they do it every 2 years. It comes back to me. I sit down with my leaders. We go through it. We look at our budget. We look at, you know, the stress technique and what we need to do, and we try to budget for that. It's pretty cool. This is just one example they have. They also have another sheet. This is conditional. They also have a sheet where it will tell them what level they need to be at, where it needs to be. It's done every 2 years. We are redoing our inventory. We just moved into a new facility 4 years ago, so this is all being upgraded. But they analyze themselves. I mean, they know what they're doing, so it makes my job a lot easier. And it also, with this being done, I go to my board of supervisors. They know what it takes to. They know the condition of the street, and they know what it's going to cost. They know that ahead of time. So for 2022, I'm doing budget right now. They know in 2023 this is being done, so they know in advance what the township, the highway department is looking at for the future, so they can plan accordingly themselves.
Mhm.
I think that a good agency, a successful agency, has plans ahead. So, and we had some problems a few years back in 2008 with the economy, and we already planned ahead for that.
Yeah, you're ready for it.
Yes.
Wonderful. Tell us a little bit about the education and teaching that you do.
We were actually asked by PennDOT a couple years in a row because of our innovative techniques, like we'll try anything. We went through and decided to do a double application of chip seals with a steel roller, which nobody does, and we fog it, and it worked out very well. So PennDOT came along and said, hey, can you come to us in our state capital and show people what we do, and this is what we do. That's all our work. We demonstrated and spoke about our process, and it says trust the process. That's how we are. We trusted the process. We love the chip seal process, and we teach others now about that. And you'd be surprised how many people don't understand what that means. But the education that we can give to other people, we like doing that. My guys went with me, my 2 leaders, and we actually spoke to some PennDOT officials, other townships, and we all to help somebody else. If you can help somebody every day, that's what we're about, and it works out very well.
One thing I'll highlight here is, Bill, this idea of combining the treatment, right? Chip and fog, chip giving you that really cost-effective ability to sort of restore a surface or whatever it is that you need to do with that particular road, and then the fog seal making it look more aesthetically pleasing or a little bit more like a new road. We see a lot of agencies like Bill combining treatments. And if you get on the Treatment Resource Center that Grace showed you earlier, there's a section that talks very specifically about common combinations, because that's one of the things we're really curious about, and that we're seeing quite a bit is agencies that learn how to really trust the process, figuring out how to combine the processes for either longer life or multiple benefits, and kind of optimizing the cost savings along with all the benefits they need for different environments, especially when you're in a place where there's lots of residents or they want to see that fresh black looking appearance. So yeah, go ahead. Trying new treatments. Of all of the people who are excited to try new treatments, Bill, it's clear from our first conversation with you that you're just willing to try it. And that's something that I think is intimidating or can be a big deal for agencies is being willing to introduce something new, managing expectations with residents, with higher ups, with decision makers, taxpayers. Talk to us about when you're introducing a new treatment. How do you do it? How do you get comfortable, and how do you bring people along?
First of all, I make sure it's what we need and it works for us, and it's a good technique for our preventive maintenance toolbox. And then from there, I got to go obviously to my managers and my board and convince them that, see, they get the complaints as well, and then the complaints come down to me and blah blah blah. So that I have to convince them that this is a better technique. This will solve this issue or that issue or the next issue. It'll last 3 more years, and it's a good treatment. And sometimes you try a new treatment and there's fear. There's I wouldn't say fear. There's nervousness if it doesn't work. That's my butt, because obviously it costs thousands of dollars to do whatever you're doing. But it's all researched. I talk to the contractors who do it. I know good ones around here that my chip seal contractors I've known for over 20 years. They're great people. They're very honest. They're down home people. I talk to them about new techniques. I go online. I make sure I know what it is. I actually will go see. Say somebody did it somewhere else. I'll go see that. And say, you know what, it didn't work for them. Might not work. But that's how we do it. I test it. I'm going. I'm gonna go do it.
Thanks.
Of course, the cost. Obviously, the cost and efficiency of the results. It has to be a cost-effective technique, but I can convince my board that, hey, listen, this is good for Limerick Township.
Well, that's my cue to help with equipping the viewers on this webinar with some more tools to try new treatments and learn about new things. And as you just walk through all of the sort of sources of information that you, excuse me, clicking around here for a second, sources of information that you had to go through to learn all of this stuff. Again, RoadResource.org is a great place to go to learn more. If you start over here in the right-hand side under resources, we have webinars about some of these network level concepts that Bill has implemented on his network, and as well as specific webinars on a given treatment, milling best practices, emulsions 101. This is a great place to start for all of your training, and it looks like my internet is having some trouble here, but a great place to start if you're not already plugged into those sort of learning communities that Bill walked through, as well as these training resources that are provided by EMA, ERA, and ISSA. It's the professionals who are laying this stuff down every day, just like Mike, who've been doing this for 40 years and more, teaching you how to do it and what you need to know when you make those partnerships as well. So again, RoadResource.org has assembled quite a few of these things for you. A great place to start as you start to look for some of these things. One thing I'll also direct your attention to here is search for articles. If you're looking for either research papers or success stories about treatments in your region or a given treatment that you're curious about, you can search by search term or by treatment and type of resource that you're looking for just to learn more. This is a great place to start for those things. So without a further interruption, let me take you back here. And tell us a little bit, Bill, you've done a lot to not only change the way the network handles and manages their roads, or the township does. You've equipped a crew of really soldiers out there who are watching the roads with you, making recommendations with you, monitoring things, and really after trying to make things better and make a difference. But it couldn't have all been a walk in the park. Tell us a little bit about some of the hurdles that you encountered, especially as it relates to trying new treatments. I think that's a particular sticking point, one of the hurdles that comes to wanting to take a risk on something new.
I mean, listen, we all fail, and as we fail, it makes us better. So we have a couple of treatments that we did back in the past that did not work. Actually, didn't work at all, and we did a little more research and figured out that it was, might not have been done the right, correct way, and then we did it again. So that's how I'm not throwing anything away. Nothing. Some things don't work all the time. Some things might have been done the wrong way, or some things, maybe it wasn't the right technique for the right road at the right time. That's possible too, but not taking out of the toolbox, never taken out of the toolbox. The toolbox that we have stays there, and things get added to it. Nothing ever gets removed. Other than that, and hurdles that we talk about were, right here at Limerick today, and for the past 20 years, I've had a fantastic board of supervisors, a fantastic manager, assistant manager, and their expectation of me was known when they came in here. So I didn't have to go overboard and beyond. I've been here for almost 30 years, and I've been through 5 managers. I've been through, board, and that changes every year. And that's very hard. That's a hurdle I have to deal with every single year. But luckily, the past, 20 years, it's been, they get it. They understand. I educate them. I take my managers for a ride. My engineers work hand in hand with me. They're great folks. They tell my managers that, this guy's okay. He knows what he's doing. They double check and they do their engineering on top of me. But they all know, and that hurdle was overcome by explaining to them many years of not having anything done, many years of them saying no, many years of residents complaining every single day to the board that I hate this, I hate that, and they're voted, they're elected, so they're going to decline it or let you do it. And it took a long time for the education for those to see, and actually seeing is believing. So when they saw it, when I would take them back out there, they would say, hey, you know what, this is okay. So now it's a lot different. And I am a huge believer in learning what you can. And if somebody says you can't, you improvise and overcome. We do that here all the time. No matter no matter what it may be. But, you know, resident complaints are constant, and people don't understand that, you know, the technique, you know, the money that costs to maintain a, you know, that lane mile wise, 200 lane miles. That's a lot of work. So, the hurdles were large. I think education, again, to those people was the key. And seeing.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of those communication pieces, Bill. How did you do it specifically? Did you form trainings for them or PowerPoints, or how did you get ahead of that? Tell us, like, some of these folks out here, we hear it all the time. When we have a chance to sit down with agencies and say, what holds you back? We hear all the time the pressure they get from electeds because they're getting pressure from taxpayers, or the pressure they get from taxpayers, why are you treating my good road? Or, you know, it's everywhere. You've been through it. Specifically, what'd you do to help get ahead of it?
Well, luckily, the last, you know, the managers I had the past few years, we all go to the same training course up in Pennsylvania. So when we were at those training courses, I would introduce them to my contractors. I would introduce them to tables where they were showing how things were done. I would take them to, you know, have demonstration at these I would take them to demonstration, and I would take them to the job when the job was being done in Limerick Township and say, hey, here's what we're doing. This is why we're doing it, and this is what happens. So, you know, you're going to do this, you know, for $20,000 today and not touch the road for 7, 8, 10 years. So I think that proof of concept, like it says there, is really how it worked. A lot of years of going and knocking on the manager's door every year and just saying, listen, this is what you have to do. This technique works. I give them magazines, I give them articles, I show them techniques that are done all over the country. And then communication was the key. And, you know, I think that the board, my board is really, you know, very knowledgeable on what we do here. We had like a liaison who would, you know, come down to Public Works and we would tell him, here's how we do this. This is how we snowplow. They would ride with us in the snowplow. They would come to the job and watch recycling. So they all bought into it, as my employees did, which is huge.
I think that idea of getting them out on the job site too, and like forming official liaisons, those are a couple, you know, pretty cool ideas that are helpful for once you see something with your own eyes, that can really change things.
This is a good one here. We all know what happened in 2008 as far as recession goes. So my jobs were obviously stopped. They froze myself and all my employees' wages for a few years after that. It wasn't just 1 year. But like I said before, a successful agency plans ahead. So when 2008 came, we were in pretty damn good shape. So I could crack seal a couple miles. I could do some chip seal, and my in-house work, which is huge, did the base repair. So we really didn't have to sub out a ton of money. It didn't have to cost the township. You know, we spend $1 million a year. It didn't have to spend that kind of money. So it's planning ahead with the preservation program that helped us succeed in 2008, where we did not lose a road. We didn't lose. I don't think we lost. I mean, you lose time, but I don't think we lost anything as far as physical cost for the street. It didn't help us because we planned ahead. When that season came, we were good to go. And we did those 3 items right there. I mean, that's routine maintenance and some preventive maintenance, and that was done a lot. We might have done a lot that year, but it solved, you know, a problem for the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Did you? I didn't ask you this ahead of time, Bill, so I'm springing this on you. In COVID, did you have any sort of similar reactions, or did COVID change anything about your plan?
Yeah, it did. They sent my guys home for 3 months, so it was just me here every day. And then I brought in the skeleton crew a couple of days a week. So it happened in March, so my bids were already calculated and done, and the budget was accepted. So we actually got through 2019 without any cutbacks.
Fantastic.
Those cutbacks will come now, obviously, for taxpayers' money coming in. But we actually were ahead of the game again. We did a recycle road in 2019, and we did all our work. We didn't lose it 1 second. So
you were able,
not
because
really.
you had that plan, you were able to kind of keep it moving.
Yes,
That's
and the plan is huge. I mean, that plan is set in place. Like I said, my plan right now is being set in place for 2022 right now in September. So if something would hit the fan again, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
And that's a 2-year. It didn't affect us much.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about, another tool that you guys can use if you're working on building out that plan.
Thanks. So this is another tool. This is a little bit of an example of exactly what Bill was just talking about. Let's imagine in 2008, your work is halted, your budgets get cut. What Bill did was go to those roads that need preservation and preserve as much as he could in order to make that the work that he could do go as far as possible. So this really relates to the concept of remaining service life. And I'm not going to demonstrate the calculator for the sake of time today. The PPRA puts on an in-depth training that you should all look up called the Roadvocate training, the Road Resource Network Boot Camp, where we go through each of the calculator tools on the website. And we can teach you how to use this there. But for the sake of time, I'll talk through really why this works so well for Bill and how it can be put to use here. Essentially, what we have here is an example of 2 different annual treatment plans. On the left, we have a worst first approach, and on the right, optimized. And you can get to this under the network optimization section under the remaining service life calculator. And what we're looking at here is 2 different annual treatment plans with the same budget here, right around 4.6 million, which is quite a bit. But if we look at how that money is spent in the worst first approach, under reconstruction, we're doing 9 miles of remove and replace, and then 16 miles of rehab, which is split up between a 3-inch mill and fill and 1.5-inch mill and fill. At the end of the day, we're addressing 25 miles of road. When we think about the service life that each of those treatments adds into our network, let's say you expect a certain amount of years from a full depth remove and replace, multiply that by the 9 miles that you're doing, you're adding 433 lane mile years of life back into your network. And eventually what you're doing is you're losing more ground by addressing worst first roads than you are gaining ground with this annual treatment plan. So if I back up just for a second, a 500-mile network will lose 500 mile years of life annually. And so in this example, a network with 1,000 lane miles, if we're only injecting 433 lane mile years of life, we're actually deteriorating at a faster rate than we are adding life into the network with this annual treatment plan. We're losing the race. But in an optimized approach, if you spend that money higher up the curve, let's say we're doing some full depth reclamation for 4 miles of that. We're doing only 8 miles of rehab, which is spread out over recycling treatments. Those savings down at the bottom of the curve are injected back into the top of the pavement preservation curve or deterioration curve into pavement preservation treatments. Now we can cover more miles with chip seal, slurry seal, cape, crack, all of those preservation treatments that Bill was talking about. And this time we're covering 204 miles with this annual treatment plan on the same budget. And for that reason, once we multiply the mileage out by the number of added service years, we get a network gain. We're actually adding 104 years of network life with a treatment plan that injects more life into our road network. So I ran through that pretty quickly for the sake of time. Check out this page to understand more. And then we have a calculator here where you can learn how to use the concept of remaining service life and calculate if your annual treatment plan is actually adding life. And again, if you're interested in learning more about this, we do an in-depth training called the Roadvocate training, where you can find here. That'll be coming up in early December. Keep an eye out for that, where we'll be sending emails as well.
And that's a 3-day training. That's 2 hours a day. You get credit for attending it. If you need a sponsor, we can help make that happen. But it's a great way to really get your hands dirty with the site and kind of plug in your own network and play with all the tools. So we're coming up on the top of the hour, but I want to quickly have Bill, if you will, tell us the network today, where are you at? If you started that journey in the 90s, where are you at today?
Oh, you're on mute.
Bill.
Okay, am I there?
There you go.
We did start the journey in the 90s, and we probably have one of the best road systems. We are the second largest county in Montgomery County. We are the probably one of the best systems here. We very rarely fill potholes during the winter time. Like you see there, we used 1 ton of coal patch in 2020. We actually plan our maintenance techniques 2 to 3 years ahead of us. Our system, our road system, and that's drainage, that's everything, has came full circle in the last 20 years. It's amazing. We're told that by neighbors, by our board, by people who drive in and out of here, that our system is very comparable. And it's planning. It's just continuous planning over and over. It's continuous planning. It's planned strategy over and over.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's again, the techniques we use. We use cement. I met with Michael from EJ Brennan a few years back, and he talked about cement, and I wasn't a believer in cement, and so I researched it, we tried it, and I'll tell you what, I'm a believer now. So we encourage that. Again, that's planning, and that's networking, and that's trying new things. Our network condition is very well.
Very cool. When Bill told us he had almost no potholes in his network, we almost didn't believe him. Then he told us that figure about the ton of cold patch, and that compared with the amount of salt that they used last winter really is quite remarkable.
Bill, I have 2 quick questions for you, and then I'll get to some of the questions from the group. Just really quickly, for agencies who are just getting started with preventive planning, we have a lot of people that attend these webinars who are saying, hey, I'm new to this. Top 2 or 3 pieces of advice you would give them?
Database, number one. Database. I would look at my short-term needs right away, and I would also, decrease your capital spending. Look towards operation and maintenance to keep your infrastructure in the state that's good. That's the top 3.
Next question. We're going to see, we're actually very curious what's going to happen with budgets over the next year or 2 as a result of infrastructure stimulus, as a result of COVID, and agencies are seeing all kinds of different things. For agencies experiencing big budget shifts, either more money available or less money available, what advice would you give?
You need to start with your routine techniques. Your routine techniques are the most cost effective. That's your crack seal, things like that. That's where you start, no matter what your budget is. And work towards your preventive maintenance techniques from there out. Partner. Years ago, I partnered with PennDOT they would do something for me, I would do something for them. Your neighbors, partner with your neighbors to save money. Maybe you cold patch, maybe you pave a road for them. We've done that. That's huge as far as budget goes. But I will say this, that in the past decade, small local agencies continue to account for more than 3/4 of infrastructure spending in the United States. And that goes to show that they are decreasing capital projects, and they want to keep what they have now solid as it is. And that's a fact. I think they spent like $23.9 billion last year in preventive maintenance. That's gigantic.
Well, and what you're saying is it's small choices made by small agencies every single day that add up to literally billions of dollars of change in our country. And the ability to impact that taxpayer spending is just so remarkable. I want to get to just a few questions from the audience, so we'll hang on. Thank you for sharing your story, Bill. We really appreciate it. It's incredible. And if you can, we'll just hang on for about 10 minutes and field some Q&A for those of you who have to go. These webinars are all available. Bill is one of many stories on the site, and you know, it's something to look back on, like 30 years of managing a network this way and see what Bill's done. But for those of you who are early on or in the middle of the process, we've got webinars that really cover all of that and kind of how people have made it work. So please make sure to check those out. But Bill, you have a lot of very specific technical questions that we'll have you answer offline and email out. There's a couple I do want to get to that are bigger and broader though. One, how do you decide what you do in-house and what you outsource? I know that you kind of do in-house what you can, but there's obviously a role for outsourcing or partnering with contractors, and I'd like to know when you do that and specifically what treatments you do that on.
Well, I'll tell you what, we do very little outside of here. We strive to do everything we can. The only thing we will not do would be like a reclaiming job, will be a recycling job, things like that. We do everything else in this facility. And what's decided upon that is the amount of equipment or the amount of cost it may be. That's how it's decided. But we do everything here. It's the best I could tell you. I mean, I don't sub anything out except we don't have a pug mill, or we don't have giant mills like that. And that actually has to be subbed out. So other than that, that's it.
Yeah. The more invasive stuff. And
Yes.
That's not going to be the path for every agency. We know that.
Nope.
So lots of other agencies that we have interviewed on our panels can talk about partnership with contractors and how they do that. But I do think that's such an interesting part of how you've said we're going to save taxpayers dollars at literally every turn. Another question related to that is, do you perform your own internal Q&A and testing?
Some. As far as what?
As far as concrete, HMA, do you cut and weigh your own HMA cores? Do you break your own cylinders for concrete?
No.
Or do you rely on outside testing facilities for that?
We outside test that. That'll go to my engineer and they take care of that for us. All our testing is done outside.
Got it. Actually, there's a question about the assessment sheet that you give to all of your guys. Did you build that, or did you get that from Pennsylvania? And would you be willing to share it?
Absolutely share that. That is a Pennsylvania form. And each state has that. That's a Pennsylvania form, and I can actually share that, yes.
Okay, fantastic. This one's just kind of interesting. I'm gonna key in on this one, even though it's a little more technical. Because of all of you're in such a heavy snow traffic area. How does your chip seal process hold up in areas where you have heavy snow plowing?
Well, here's how I solve that. I don't do a single application. We do double application, no matter what it is. So if it's half-half or half-quarter, it's always double application. I also spec a steel roller in my specification, which is not done. The contractors think I'm nuts, but I have a pneumatic roller and I spec a steel roller, and it actually knits everything together, and my plows don't rip it up. They really don't rip it up. My plows are off the ground. They're not on the ground. That's another reason. We plow with shoes, and we keep it close to a 1/4 inch off the ground, which allows the salt to stick and melt to the road.
So I think that's a really interesting thing that you just shared, Bill. And we hear a lot of agencies saying things like, well, I can't use chip seal where there's snow plow. And then we'll hear someone like you say, absolutely, I do, but here's how I make it work,
Yep.
right? Or we'll hear some agencies say, well, I can't use microsurfacing on high-speed, high-volume roadways, but it's used on the Autobahn, and there are plenty of people, even in quite northern climates, that use it on highways or interstates. And so typically it's a matter of figuring out what's it take to make this treatment succeed here. And that's one thing that I took away from talking to you, is just your commitment to saying, I'm not going to give up on the treatment. I'm going to figure out what does it take to make the treatment succeed.
Yes.
And that's why creating these kind of connection points between agencies, so agencies can learn from each other, and then those opportunities for contractors who do it day in and day out and eat and breathe and sleep microsurfacing and emulsions can help people kind of understand that stuff. The last thing I want to tell you guys about, and then we'll let you go, is there is a LinkedIn group. Grace, do you mind pulling this up? one of the requests that we got from agencies was to be able to connect more with people like you, Bill, or be able to kind of learn from each other, and that is available. So there's a LinkedIn group for Road Resource, and it's free to join, and it's an opportunity to kind of throw out questions like, how do you make chip seal work in if you have a snowplow environment? Or how do you, what do you need to know to ensure that this thing succeeds? Or could you share your assessment form? So here it is. This is what it looks like on LinkedIn. It's a peer exchange group, and we're funneling here anything that we kind of find out about the industry or about what's happening, or latest research or whatever. We kind of pump all that here, and then this is really a place for you guys to kind of share and learn from each other. We will post the answers to the questions on the LinkedIn group. There's a lot of really technical questions here. I'll preview a few of them. We won't cover them for the sake of time, but it says things like, what depth is average for your CIR process? What type of HMA are you using for BAE course and surface course? Are you using any treatment specifically for centerline joint failure? So we'll make sure that Bill gets to those questions, and we'll send those out afterwards. And actually, before we hop off, Mike, just since we have a CIR expert on the line, I might ask you to quickly answer that CIR question. What depth is average for your CIR process? Do you use emulsion or asphalt cement? And do you use cement too at what percent? Do you mind kind of fielding that while you're here? And you might give just an industry answer of this is what you do in Pennsylvania, but this is what you've seen elsewhere.
Okay, so in Pennsylvania, the specification, if you're going by PennDOT specs, is anywhere from 3 to 5 inches compacted material, recycled material. We do a lot of testing beforehand to make sure we have adequate depth of the old asphalt material, that we can perform whatever depth the municipality would like us to construct at, such as Bill's would be around 4 to 5 inches in depth compacted in Limerick Township. Other townships slightly different, depending on what we're working with. Sometimes we have to work off an old state concrete highway that's been overlaid over a number of years. And so we're basically just taking more or less 9.5 millimeter material, turning that back into a recycled base on top of a concrete pavement. As far as emulsions, we use basically a CSS 1H emulsified asphalt. We do not do foamed asphalt as of this time. That might be something we get involved in the future. Basically, right now we use the emulsified asphalt. In some cases, we may use a 1% of Portland cement dry added to the road surface, where we recycle that along with the recycled old wrap material. And what the cement does is it gives us a quicker cure time. Maybe it increases the strength of the recycled material slightly, but we do use cement along with the emulsions in some cases. But then we have to do different mix designs to make sure that we don't reduce the moisture content of the recycled materials with too much cement, adding that to the mix.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bill, is there anything else you want to comment on that question?
No.
Mike will cover it.
He covered it. I mean, we do exactly what he said, and we use it all.
Well, thank you both for being available today. Bill, thanks for all your time in preparation and for being willing to kind of pull back the curtain and let everybody see what goes on behind the scenes. It really is, it's incredible growth in what you've done for the agency, and really incredible savings for taxpayers and performance for the roads. I mean, it's everything that the agencies that we spend time with are looking to do. So we appreciate your time today. Again, you guys can find this on RoadResourceorg, and we'll make sure that those questions get answered and get sent out on that LinkedIn peer exchange group. And we will also put a link to that in the follow-up.
Thank you. So you'll have a link to the LinkedIn on the follow-up, so I can get on that?
Yeah, we sure will. And so if everybody wants to pepper Bill with your questions, do it on the LinkedIn group.
If I could say one last thing, he's very bashful in what he's performed there at Limerick Township. When you don't have an engineering background and you're building bridges, and you're building buildings and doing the footings, and you're doing the sanitary sewers, and you're doing the storm sewers and water lines. That's amazing. I go onto some of his projects, and I'm absolutely amazed. I have to scratch my head. You know, you're not a construction company, Bill. You're taking all my work. I'm just kidding. But he's amazing at what he's accomplished.
Yeah, it is really remarkable. And that's when we talk about people who are on the move to do things better and won't settle for anything less. You're a really great example of that. So thanks again for sharing your story. And thanks again, you guys, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Great day.
Bye.
Too.